Cineverb.
Hello and welcome to Cineverm, a podcast discussing films in and out of the cinema. My name is Anthony Renteria.
And I'm David.
And this week on episode 53, we are discussing the 2022 film Everything Everywhere All at Once, written and directed by Daniels, or also known as Daniel Scheinert and Daniel Kwan. And here is a quick synopsis. An aging Chinese immigrant is swept up in an insane too many ends there in an insane adventure where she alone can save the world by exploring other universes, connecting with the lives she could have lived. Man, this is a
It's a mouthful.
This is a difficult synopsis. Unfortunately, this sweeps her up into an even bigger adventure when she finds herself lost in the infinite worlds of the multiverse. As always, we will begin with a spoiler-free review, and after our ratings, we will go into a full spoiler discussion, and we will give you plenty of time to pause the podcast when that time comes. So, to begin our initial impressions, I guess I'll start a little bit, because you've seen the film more recently than me, and it's weird. I don't think I've forgotten a lot about the movie, but it was so much movie. I'm like struggling to like wrangle any single idea from it because it was so much. This was my first experience with Daniel's film. I think you had said earlier, pre-podcast, that you had seen what is it called?
Swiss Army.
Yeah. But so for me, just initially, it was like I didn't know anything about the movie. I just know, I guess the one thing I went in with the movie, and I guess would be an interesting topic to cover, because it very, very rarely happens where a film comes out and it's just immediately like a cult classic, like upon just off, like it just lands and everyone's talking about it. And I feel like this is like one of the buzziest movies that I've heard about in a long time. I guess in the Letterboxd community specifically, because it literally debuted as like the number one film of all time rated on that website. So I did go into movie with that expectation, and then I was like, oh, this is totally not going to live up to that. This is like a freak accident. But then at the end of the movie, I was like, I guess this makes a lot of sense. Like it feels like you're like, I feel like Letterboxd is kind of like the film hipster kind of community, and I think this film perfectly fits that mold. So I guess what were your initial impressions coming out of the theater?
Oh, coming out of the theater.
And then also,
well,
like,
oh
what
yeah,
you
I
thought
told you.
About them.
Well, I remember I told you right after that it put me in a good mood. Like I just wasn't expecting that. Like I don't know. Like it put me in a really positive mood afterwards. Like hopeful mood. You know, because the movie's theme is really interesting, and I don't know. I can't think of another movie that's really tackled that theme in the same way, which is just like that. I guess just nihilism, just like how do you deal with the meaninglessness of the modern world, especially like with all that we know about science and just everyday life and how it is. So yeah, it tackled that theme in a really interesting way that actually stuck with me, probably the most out of everything in the movie. So yeah, that was interesting. And then, I mean, going into the movie, I was kind of expecting, I don't know why, like a A24, a Marvel movie. Like that's what maybe I read that somewhere, that it was kind of not that it was trying to be that, but that people were saying it was like that. So I was expecting that. Yeah.
If Marvel were to make an indie film that was purely focused on, I guess, like a character piece, this kind of fits that.
Yeah, kind of with the multiverse stuff and everything. It's sort of, there's some like familiar elements about it that might remind people of Marvel, but it's definitely not. Doesn't have the vibe. Just because it's not there's no sequel bait. There's no connection to anything else, like, or any other movies or any other characters that would have. It's like a completely self-contained story, which was good. But I don't know why it left me a little. I guess that's a negative of the movie, that it was so self-contained that it was like the family stuff in the movie was sort of just boring, I guess, when it all was said and done. Like the family drama of it, like the
Yeah.
overall the bigger themes of it were interesting, and obviously the
Yeah.
style of the movie was the most memorable, like interesting part of it, like the like maximalist style of the movie, which I think is a
Yeah.
really good word to describe it.
Yes.
And the absurdity of it. Like you warned me ahead of time, like just go in expecting the absurd. And I'm glad you said that, because if you had, like I said, I was imagining like a Marvel, like a serious kind of, like, mostly serious, but like with a little bit of comedy, like Marvel
Yeah.
movies have the soy banter that they're famous for in them, even though it's a very serious plot. But this movie is like the inverse. Like it's mostly silly, but with some serious scenes, sprinkled in there. So it
Yeah.
is, you definitely go in expecting a really absurd, almost comic booky kind of movie, like cartoonish sort of movie,
Yeah.
and just
It
relax your brain and just let it roll over you.
Yeah. It honestly reminds me of uh I grew up watching South Park as a kid, and like the first three
Uh,
seasons of South Park to me are like peak satire and like
mm-hmm.
crude humor. And I felt like
Yeah.
now hearing you like talk about what you just said, for some reason it made me think like this is like if the South Park guys could write the best episode of South Park ever, it would kind of be like this, because even those first three seasons, even if they got into some deep themes, I would always feel like, oh man, like it didn't get emotional enough. And like you bringing up the family thing, like I will say, watching the film, like being in the theater, like having it all, uh, you know, burn into your eye sockets, it was just a phenomenal experience. Like I think it was one of the funnest times I've had in a theater in a long time, just because I did not know what was going to happen. It
Yeah.
just went off the rails, and like in a humor that I don't think is common. Like you were saying, like the Marvel stuff, it's more like uh smart ass kind of humor. It's like
Yeah.
the Iron Man stick is their humor. And I've always felt very disappointed by that, because it gets tiresome. Like Doctor Strange is essentially saying the same humorous lines that, like, I
Mm-hmm.
think it was like Age of Ultron was one where like everyone's has the same sense of humor. Like everyone's just very,
Right.
saying very smart, quippy lines. Um,
Uh-huh.
so this is not that at all. This almost bleeds like an 80% into physical humor or absurd
Yeah.
humor, but it's all physical. Like you see something that's just dumb and you're like, I never thought I would see this in a movie. Oh, this fight scene is not what I thought would be in a movie. And it's like so many of those things, which we will get into the
Yeah.
spoilers. But like I can't remember the last movie. Like the only comparable film that I kept thinking about was like Scott Pilgrim, but Scott
Yeah.
Pilgrim is a very like smart, stupid humor, and it's very like British in the way
Uh,
that it does, at least in my mind, how it handles humor. It's never laugh out loud funny. It's just like you smile and you chuckle and you think that's really smart.
yeah.
Where this is like almost it wants a reaction out of you.
Mm-hmm.
and that was fun. Like there was people in my theater who were literally crying laughing in
Oh my God.
in a fight sequence that we'll get into, and I was just like, this is so dumb. so
But you have
but
to laugh at it. You have to laugh at that, like they're going for it, Like
yeah.
that's what's
And then
missing, that you don't see in any other movie that I remember. They just go for, they have to, because it's kind of it's really risky, because I feel like
oh yeah.
in my movie theater, it was at first people weren't sure, like people were like laughing really hesitantly
Hmm.
at first, because they just weren't really sure, or because it is dumb. But like once you
Yeah.
realize that it's dumb on purpose, like you just, it's funny, it's hilarious that they did that, they went to that level of just like body humor. Yeah.
Yeah, and it feels very child childlike. Is that the word?
Yeah,
Like
innocent. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess one other thing that I want to bring up that you brought up was the A24 thing. And it's interesting. Like, I feel like I think A24 is having a very interesting, or is going to have a very interesting year this year, because they have this, which is, I want to say it's their first kind of real foray into like a sci-fi. Well, I mean, they've had sci-fi films, but like a sci-fi film that was more action, like
Yeah.
entertainment based. Like, this feels like the first A24 movie that its sole purpose is entertainment. It's like,
Yeah.
I think all the emotional stuff is awesome, but I don't think the Daniels I I don't know. If their intent was to have a extremely emotional film, I think it does kind of collapse under certain elements like you brought up with the family. Like, the more I think about it, the more I think like, yeah, all these things are really funny, but I think there's some things that are really funny in the film that do support the emotional arc of the family narrative. And then there's other funny moments that have absolutely nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
And like, and we'll get into that, but like, I feel like, especially in the third act, experiencing it in the theater, it was amazing and like hope inspiring. But just upon
Mm-hmm.
reflection, I'm like, there's kind of like 10 endings in the ending of the third part that I think kind of muddy the
Yeah.
emotional catharsis that I think we're supposed to feel. And then also there's an element where I'm like, wait, what was the resolution again? Like, I felt kind of confused, but I'm also like a nihilist. So like, I was actually getting frustrated because I was like, oh, I hate this. Like, kindness does not solve the world, or, like, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah,
In
I
the
don't know.
back of my head, yeah, I agree with you. I was a little. We could talk about that more later, but yeah, I was like, this my skeptic side. I was like, man, they could have. Maybe there's a way that they could have wrapped up the movie that would have made more sense, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess to
But
get into the technical stuff, and then we can go into spoilers. So, what
yeah,
did you think about the cinematography? Because that was one thing I was worried about. Because I was like, oh, I know they did not have a big budget, and I was like, oh, I hope this doesn't look like crap. What did you think about
no,
like
like
the visuals?
in general, I mean, is this? Do you know? I don't know. I couldn't find it, or I didn't look very deeply, but. Is this like the biggest budget A24 movie so far, or is it not? It just seems like it. I
I
don't know.
think I think
But
it has to be, because normally their budgets are like 10 to 20 million. Okay, so yeah, this was 25 million, which
yeah,
is, I think that's the highest I've ever heard of them. I think their previous
okay.
highest was like 20 million, and I think that
Hmm.
was Midsommar, or
Oh,
yeah, I
okay.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but this it definitely like it feels like the highest budget A24 movie because it lots of A24 movies, they're just known to be kind of very minimalist,
Yeah.
where they feel yeah, they're just very minimalist. Like not much is going on. It's all about like the suspense and all that. But this is definitely not. It doesn't hold anything back. It feels like a really expensive movie for how much they put into it. And I was reading a
Hmm.
little bit about how they did all the special effects and how they all tried to keep it as practical as possible, and that's cool. Um, and so yeah, and just how much there is in the movie and the editing. I think the editing makes it feel a lot more expensive than it really is.
Yeah.
So that was really cool about it. Um, yeah, and just there's just so I think it's just because it's such a creative movie and
Yeah.
they throw so many different types of scenes and different ideas in there
Hmm.
that it feels way more than it actually is. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And that,
they did the best with what they had, basically.
yeah, and just a little correction. Midsommar was made for 9 million.
Oh,
uh,
okay. Yeah.
uh, yeah, so this is way bigger. I've been going through like all the A24, and like yeah, this is like at least double anything I can see budget wise. But you talking about how they stretch the budget, that reminds me of the Green Knight. I feel like the Green Knight was
Mm,
15 million. That was their previous highest. So this had
15.
10 million
Mm,
over that. And but yeah,
yeah.
like the way the Green Knight and this, how they like, it's really smart, because I'm like thinking like filmmaking brain like turning on, like, all right, what did they do? And like it's, oh, well, I'll have to dig into that, into the spoilers, because I don't want to
Hmm.
spoil any specific scenes. But
Yeah.
the way I think it's the multiverse thing that really allows it, because you
Yeah.
can pop in and out without having to establish worlds. And yeah.
Yeah.
But one thing I really did like, because and I read this in a lot of interviews, is that they primarily used to make music videos, and so they have like a really
Oh.
ragtag team of like digital effects artists that like they don't use like like a CGI studio like almost every movie does. They were just using like people who do music video stuff for like amateur people who teach themselves how to use like Adobe After Effects,
Yeah.
and they figure it out. And like supposedly it was only like a group of like 12 of them that
Wow.
did all the animation for this film, which is like unheard of. Like you're talking about normally like a studio of 50 to 100 people
Right.
doing
Yeah. Yeah.
any like 10 seconds of CGI in any movie. So
Yeah.
like that is insane. And uh there's a couple moments that I think we can get into in the spoiler stuff. What did you think? I guess one other big thing is, what did you think about the performances, like specifically with like Michelle Yeoh and her husband? Because I thought both of them were the standouts to me.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, both of them did great. I mean, to see the short round actor, which I only discovered that afterwards. I was like, oh my god, that's Short Round from Indiana Jones. That's really cool. Yeah, they were both really cool, and I don't, it added a lot of the emotional stuff to the movie, that just because of they're good actors, and
Yeah,
like that stuff was serious and realistic. Those parts of the movie, their conversations and stuff. So yeah, I think it added a lot to the movie, even if that stuff didn't resolve the best. But
yeah,
uh, it was those scenes were fun. Like it wasn't like I was waiting for, especially at the beginning, like establishing their family and stuff. All of that was
hmm
really cool. Those
yeah.
are those were fun scenes. Like just the way she plays like a really stressed out, constantly busy person. Yeah, that was fun. All that was
Yeah.
fun.
And she makes it look easy, but I think that's probably a very hard kind of character to pull off without making her annoying or like too
Hmm.
evil or antagonistic. And then also
Yeah.
like the work she does in between each different character she plays, like they all felt like the same person, which in
Hmm.
like retrospect I'm like, yeah, that is kind of challenge, like if your directors are telling you like, all right, now you're in this universe where you're a famous person or something.
Yeah.
It's like you as an actor would have to subconsciously like, all right, what is like, how do I make sure everyone knows this is kind of the same person, just living a different life? And
Hmm.
I thought that was phenomenal. And then also like the daughter, I can't pronounce her last name, but her first name is Stephanie, and
Hmm.
I thought she did really well. Like even though I didn't feel like the resolution was as good as I wanted, like the fact that she was holding her own, and I've like never seen her in another movie against like Michelle Yeoh, like just
Hmm.
a, a veteran actress performer. I thought that was very impressive throughout the film. And then also Jamie Lee Curtis. It was like the perfect IRS.
Yeah, she was having a lot of fun. And the dad, like the grandfather
Oh
guy, he was
yeah,
funny. Like in his
yeah,
scenes that he was in, James Hong,
yeah,
like in the small scenes that he was in, he was hilarious. Like
yeah,
I wanted to see more of him almost. So
yeah,
yeah, they were all fun. Uh, yeah.
yeah. And then the last couple technical things, I really like the editing. I think it's a very well edited film. To like split in between the universes and stuff. Like I
Oh
started
yeah.
getting worried that it would become confusing or like I would get a headache, but it
Hmm.
really does a good job. Like I never felt disoriented, even though we were snapping in and out from any other places.
Yeah, because they made them all really like distinct,
Yeah.
like visually, and like even though it's like they gave the illusion of like infinite universes, they only showed a small number of them like for a while, so you didn't get too confused about, okay, what, like, is this a new place or not. It's kind of like they showed like I can't remember, five or six
Yeah.
ones that were
Yeah.
like the main ones. So you figure it out, and then they just show quick snapshots of all the
The other
others.
ones. Yeah.
So yeah, they did really good, like not making that concept really confusing.
Yeah. And then also, I like the sound effects and the sound design. I thought the score was I don't really remember the score, but I think it was good
No.
during the experience. And then the choreography of the fights, I thought
Oh, the fight scenes, yeah.
were
Yeah,
way
great.
better than I expected.
I was actually I was like really concerned about that for some reason because I knew that it was a smaller budget movie, and going in I was like, are the fights, because I just remember I told you recently I just saw the Raid for the first
Oh my
time.
God, yes.
So that was the last that was the last like fighting movie that I saw recently.
Oh
So
man.
that was like fresh in my mind. So I was kind of worried that I was like, okay, this is a smaller budget, like A24 movie doing like martial arts. Like, is this gonna be really not that great? But it was really good. Like nothing pulled me out of the reality of it or anything. It was the fight scenes were really good, really well choreographed.
And
So,
that's another
and
thing
fun
that
and
was
like creative, like super creative.
And that's another thing that was very amateur independent. Like supposedly they got like a YouTube channel or group that does like stunt stuff, and they break down stunts and they do their own stunts or whatever, or like reenact stunts, and they got them to be the stunt team, and it was like this was their first time doing stunts on a major film production. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, that's so cool. And like I guess they chose these people because of the price. It's like we can't afford the guys who did the Raid, because they probably charge like $5 million each. So yeah, I think that's really freaking awesome. And like just from like all the interviews I've heard, like everyone says like it felt like a movie that we were making in someone's backyard. Like it just felt like everyone who was there learned it their own way. So it was just like a nice collage of experiences. But then
and it definitely does not feel like a YouTube, team made. Yeah, it definitely I would have never guessed that. That's cool.
But yeah, man. So that is all the technical stuff I think I wanted to get into before we got into the spoilers. Did you have anything else you wanted to note before ratings?
No, I guess just if people like similar movies, just Swiss Army Man. Obviously, if you really like that movie, you would definitely like this one. Scott Pilgrim, that's like one of your top favorite movies because of the editing and the sense of humor and the quick stuff, kind of style. Like you would definitely like this movie. Even it had elements of some of my favorite movies, like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, that kind of like surreal jumping from reality, jumping in between realities, and even The Matrix. It has a lot of nods to that. So just stuff like that. If you like that kind of movie,
and then also, God, what's his name? I think it's like Stephen Chu, Kung Fu Hustle. Like the guy who made that movie. I think this feels very reminiscent of that, like the extreme. Kind of humor.
Man, that's one I've never seen, and I need to. It's on my list.
You've never seen Kung Fu Hustle? Oh my god,
never seen it.
It is. I mean, it's weird. I think it's even weirder than this. Like, it doesn't go into multi-layered weirdness, but it feels like an anime movie in real life.
Oh man, yeah. Gosh, I'm gonna move it to the top of my huge list of movies to watch.
Oh my god, yes,
for sure.
All right, so I think my final overall statement is I think this is a very entertaining and fun film. I think it's very ambitious, like the fact that they're tackling, like I think a multiverse genre is very difficult to pull off, and I feel like the avalanche of them is impending, like with Doctor Strange 2 and then this, and I think just the success of this and Doctor Strange and even like Spider-Man No Way Home. I think I think the floodgates are going to open, and I think this is going to be like the next big genre thing. Yeah. And I don't know.
People are pining for alternate universes. It feels like, it's like.
And I think this does, I mean, the best job that I think anyone could do, with the exception of, just because you brought up Charlie Kaufman with the Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Oh my god, if he were to do a multiverse thing, I would faint. I would just pass out and never wake up.
Yeah, it would be very depressing probably though. It would be the total opposite ending of this movie, the feeling, it would be the complete opposite.
And that would make it my favorite movie of all time. But I do think this movie's fun. If you want to have a good time, I think like I don't see anyone going into this movie and hating it, and I think that's a testament to why it's so beloved right now. And I feel like it's going to be an instant like cult classic. I think honestly, and this is a question I was going to pose to you. Maybe you can answer it when you give your rating. Is like, do you think this will become, the Matrix of multiverse movies? Like, will this be the like everything everywhere? That kind of like adjective kind of defining thing that everyone points to. I kind of
I
think
don't know.
will be just because it's like
Yeah.
the first big one and it's an original property, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like
it could
all
over
the
time.
hype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see
But
that.
so I think my rating, if anyone watches my YouTube review, I gave it a 10 out of 10. But I think I'm going down to a 9 out of 10 because of the few, not plot errors or holes, but I do think the writers could have collapsed a lot of the skits in the third act into bigger emotional cruxes. And I think the relationships could have been fixed a little bit, or just dug a layer deeper, in my opinion. But other than that, I think it's an amazing film. 9 out of 10. I'd recommend it to everyone. So what would you rate it out of 10, David?
Oh man, you're gonna be a little disappointed, but because I was going back and forth, but I was like, I think it's a good. Definitely, everyone should see it. It's like a really interesting for A24, like for it to be this kind of like more expensive, like they're getting into bigger and bigger budget movies, and I think the themes of it are super relevant to today. That I just haven't seen those in another movie recently being tackled, but I feel like more movies, besides like, I don't know, we'll talk about others like Thanos or whatever, but it's like, I don't know, I just think it's very extremely relevant. So it's the movie's thought provoking and the style is unique and fun, and it deserves to make as much money as any of the Marvel movies, like because it's way more it's way more creative, with what it is for what it is, and funnier and better. I mean, just as good. Honestly, like if I'm just blurring my eyes and like watching this versus watching a Marvel movie, like the action and stuff in this movie is just as good. I don't know. It's just as engaging. Like it's just as, they don't, it's not all CGI, it's not all whatever slick CGI like Marvel, but like it's still just as good. I don't know. So it's kind of like I really hope that this movie does really well, and gets what it deserves. But all that said, I don't know. It's a really good 7 out of 10, I think. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm not bumping it up to an 8 or higher. I think it's just because for some reason I don't think I would watch it again soon. Like just because I feel like I don't know. I feel like I sort of like get the gist of it or remember it enough that there wasn't anything deeper beyond the pleasure of the first viewing experience.
The shock.
So I'm kind of like, it's just that first experience. So I don't know. I'm keeping it at a 7 for now. Maybe it will be like a cult classic, and it'll grow on me as time goes on. But
that's interesting because I feel like Scott Pilgrim was that for me. Like I didn't understand the humor the first time I watched it, and I was like, this is like a 7. And every time I rewatched it, it just grows and grows, and I'm like, this is just a perfect movie. Like everything is perfect. And I am planning on watching this again tomorrow because I'm curious if the emotional stuff will hit better, or like I'm curious to see if it improves. So that's interesting.
I think it's like right on the edge of an 8 for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. A 7's really good. 7's like, it's a solid movie. Everything about it is like super solid, and I guess for the budget and everything, knowing that, like that's really impressive, I guess. It's just I mean, like most Marvel movies for me, just for reference, are like a 5 out of 10. That's just like an average bland, serviceable movie, that's just like, there it is, but this goes above and beyond with its like style and its effort and creativity. So for sure. I think maybe it's just because it's not my preference or something. I don't know. I was trying to think. It was just because while I was watching the movie, I was thinking of different. It's appropriate to the theme. I was thinking of like alternate universes, alternate versions. I was thinking of alternate versions of this movie that I would have liked better. But that's just me. That's just like personal taste or whatever. So
Oh man. All right. Well, we'll get into those alternate versions here in a second because that will conclude our review portion of Everything Everywhere All at Once. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can pause the podcast now. And while you do that, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or comment on what you thought about the film or our takes on it. And you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or email us at cineverum@yahoo.com. And be sure to check out our snazzy website, cineverum.com, where we also have written reviews. And speaking of reviews, you can also check out my personal YouTube channel, A Lonely Critic, where I do weekly reviews in my car. But now let's get into the spoilers for this film. I guess, is there any like script doctoring that you would change since, because you're talking about like alternate versions. Did you have any like brilliant ideas?
I don't know. I don't know about that. Just like certain things that, well, honestly, I think I would have, I want to see since if you say like this is going to start a trend of multiverse movies, it's almost like I want to see a version of this movie that's completely serious. Just suck all the humor out of it, which would make it a completely different movie. But that actually takes the idea seriously and then has a character that's like the daughter, realizes what this does to reality, knowing that there's all these multiverses, and like actually, I don't know. I never really bought that the daughter was like fully realized what she was saying she believed. Yeah, she never really felt it. More just felt like she was rejected by her mom, and so that's what made her sad, and she was whatever. But like if you had a character that was not, let's say, like an isolated Travis Bickle type individual, and learned about the multiverse and just became the villain. And just was
Travis Bickles,
and just really fully understood what that meant, and also was trying to corrupt a main character, and you actually saw that main character like struggle against nihilism, and it was more like a philosophical type movie. Where I've been watching like Star Trek recently, and this year and last year, but like a real philosophical, like gets into it, where two characters are actually going back and forth, like debating. I know it sounds boring as a movie, but I would like to see it.
I would love that. No.
But yeah. I just kept thinking, man, I wish they'd go deeper into this, or like, man, I wish the main character, like, it actually showed her being, like, I don't know. Can you remember, like, what was the point where she was the closest to surrendering to the big donut?
I think it was bagel.
Yeah, she was in the temple, and it was almost like she was gonna for a second, but then her husband, which I did like that. I liked the whole. Yeah. I liked the guy. He's just a nice guy, and he's like, oh, like everyone just be. Oh, I really like the line of, that's what stuck with me. The line where he's like, this is how I fight. Like, I really liked that. Like, just the everyday kindness, like goodness, that is a form of, it's like a keto, where it's like fighting without fighting, where against nihilism, like that's your way of doing it. Like, yeah, everything's meaningless, but we might as well be nice to each other. I think that's really cool. That was the strongest part of the movie. It was just how they kind of worked that theme into it, into this like ridiculous movie. That was cool. But
oh my gosh. Yeah, you bring up so many interesting points. Oh my god. One thing that you said that I'm thinking about now is, I agree a lot on, okay, so let's dig into the antagonist of the daughter. And that's now I'm starting to want to change my score to an 8 out of 10, because now I'm like seeing all these flaws that the multiverse is shattering. So like like the daughter doesn't really have a character. Like who like we never really know who she is. I mean, besides and I don't even want to say it, because like it feels kind of offensive, but like I feel like her only character
that's all they
trait,
reveal.
Yeah, it was, her being in her gay relationship with her girlfriend, but like we never really got to like see her, even with her girlfriend, have any sort of moments. I mean, there was one moment when she's dropping her off at the IRS building, but like I never felt
Yeah.
like she was an independent character. So like her relationship with her own relationships weren't explored, and then the relationship with the mom wasn't explored until she was the villain. And I think that's kind of like a
Mm.
backwards way of setting up a character. Like, you know, if your character only interacts with another character when they are antagonist, it's like I don't feel sympathy towards them. And then it's weird when the mom is like, "That's my daughter." And it's like you've never really cared about your like we've never seen you care about your daughter. So what are you losing in this relationship? And then also like the daughter's like, "Well, nothing matters." And it's like, well, if nothing matters, why go through the hassle of destroying everything? Like, shouldn't there be some seed of hatred? But I guess in the narrative, she ends up deciding like, well, nothing matters. I have to prove it to my mom because she disown me. Or she didn't even disown her.
Well,
She just doesn't
I
notice.
kind of liked it a little bit. It was like I think it was the rock scene where she said that I thought this was a cool like little turn or whatever. That the reason
Yeah.
she was trying to find her mom was because she just wanted to see if her mom came to the same conclusion as her,
Okay.
or could like knowing that the multiverses existed in this, like maybe the mom would think of something, you know, that would contradict what the conclusion she had come to, the nihilistic conclusion. And
Hmm.
I guess she did. So that was that. I guess that was kind of neat how they
Yeah.
made. But while it wasn't really the mom, I guess it was the dad in reality that kind of brought it up and turned the tide. Um,
Yeah.
but that was kind of cool. But yeah, it's kind of like I don't know. She wasn't fully Jokerfied.
Yeah.
The daughter, she was more. It was more someone that is. Oh god, this is insensitive, but it's more someone who is committing suicide in order to get people's attention, because like a cry for help kind of thing. It's like
Okay.
I'm gonna destroy all the multiverses, but it was really a cry for help.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Is what
her
I'm saying.
mom. Yeah. Oh my.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. But I still think like it's still a flaw because you know we never really get to know the character. So the cry for
yeah,
help just feels like a cry for help when it could have been much more than that if you have a more developed character and relationship arc. Because one thing I was thinking about is like how do you fix this? And I think like I kind of talked about the ending earlier in the review section where I mean we go into parts where we see Rakikui, we see her like start saving
yeah,
all these people, and I was like these are all genius ideas, but like like one of the ideas I kept thinking was like, what if everything always tied to the daughter and to the husband? You know, like
mm,
in every reality,
yeah,
you meet your husband and like kind of do it with you know like her actress life. Like the husband is still there, and they don't really
yeah.
explain why or how or what he's doing, but he's still like
That's
present.
true.
And then I was thinking like, what if you know that is like the conundrum of every universe? Is always kind of the same. It's just different variables. Like the variables are swapped or the numbers are changed, but it's the same set of numbers, you know? And I
Hmm.
thought, I don't know if that's how multiverse logic works because I'm not educated in anything, but just in like a creative, emotional way, I was like, that would be so interesting if she, you know, she's unhappy in this universe. And then, you know, there's even a moment where she's like, oh, I was an actress and I was famous and I love that. I want to go back. And like, what if she did go back and we spent like some real time in there and then she realized, oh, I'm unhappy. I go home and I'm depressed.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's my husband who's also an actor now and all I do is long for him because like she's in love with him or infatuated with him or whatever. So it's like it's the same, yeah, the same set of numbers, just displayed differently in every multiverse. And then it's like every multiverse, what if she was sad and lonely and, you know, wanted either her husband or her daughter around, but she was never able to communicate properly or connect with any of them in any multiverse. And just her seeing all the versions of herself that fail at being what she strives to be, which is like have healthy relationships. Like if that could have been the theme, then I think that would have been awesome. And then I think you could have done that. Let's just take the Ratatouille scene. Like that chef guy, he was just like a nobody character. Like what if that was just the dad? Like what if you just made the dad the chef and she was working at a restaurant and then the dad was working at a restaurant. They weren't in a relationship, but he has a raccoon on his head And it's like that's your best, like they're always. It doesn't even have to be a romantic connection, but it could be
Yeah.
like I don't know. I just thought like that's what I started thinking about, and like if I could rewrite it, I was like that would be
Mm-hmm.
an interesting challenge. Is like, what if it's the same people? And then you start doing, like those movies where it's like one actor playing like 50 different characters, like
Like
Eddie
that.
Murphy or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like, what if you did that just with all these jokes? Because it would at least make the joke resonate in an emotional way. Where the Rakakui thing was funny, I was like, wait, what is the like? What does this have to do with the family? Like,
What is the
I get,
point? Yeah.
yeah, like I get it has to
Yeah.
do with the kindness and that theme. But like, if you could just even slightly tie it into the family, it would just amplify that over and over again. So
Yeah.
I don't know,
And
but
what
I
you were
guess
describing, yeah, I feel like what you're describing also is the more like the Charlie Kaufman version of this would be that
oh yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where they have the relationship and the things happen or whatever. One of them gets their memory erased and they have the relationship again, but like the same things happen,
oh
So
yeah,
yeah, it's like that. I mean, he kind of explores
yeah.
that in that movie a little bit, but yeah, that kind of thing in a multiverse would be really
And it could
interesting.
and it could still be funny. Like they could keep all the humor.
Yeah,
It's just swap
sure.
the characters to characters who you already have relationships with, and then it would connect more. But I guess getting into some of the weird stuff. Uh, what did you think about the Rakakui and like all the? Oh, there's so many weird shit that happens in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite like thing that they invented, like the mechanic of like that they had to do something absurd in order to
Oh my
verse
god,
jump.
verse jump.
Like
Yeah,
I love like that's so fun. What a great idea to just unlock a bunch of ridiculous things that you could put in your movie. Like
yeah.
it has
Wait,
to be something unexpected and absurd. That would that's cool.
what's
And it's fun.
interesting? What's interesting about that? Like that idea, I haven't heard of. Like as it's presented in the film, but I was like hanging out with a friend on New Year's Eve. If Tiffany's listening, hello. I was hanging out with her, and there's like an app. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's like it's not supposedly the multiversing jumping, but it's like we live in a simulation, and if you do something you would never do in the simulation, then
Oh,
you'll
I
see
think I
a
know what you're talking
glitch in
about.
the Matrix, and it's like an app on it. There's like multiple apps on Android. All these like people do it, and like we were watching like high schoolers talk about it, or like it's on Reddit boards and stuff, like creepypasta.
It,
But anyways,
it's
we did that, and then like we
yeah,
saw this like deer, and this deer was like chasing it. It was weird. But anyways, like so I kind of knew that concept of do something you would never do. But yeah, just like you're
yeah.
saying, like seeing the ridiculous level of things that they went through to verse jump was
It's just
it was
so
just hilarious. Yeah.
endless entertainment. Yeah, with the things they could come up with. And obviously, the apotheosis of that was the ridiculous butt plug, I guess you could call it, fight. Yeah, just wonderful, good stuff.
Oh my god. And I kind of love how they like blurred out one guy's junk.
Yeah. The whole fight, he was just blurred out. Yeah, that was fun. Just the fight, the start of the fight where he's just he is just I don't know, just the idea is just hilarious. Like he's struggling and just fighting so that he could stick that thing up his butt, and she is just fighting with all her might to stop him from doing that.
Oh my
It's funny.
god. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I think that's the loudest like I was laughing out loud, but I just remember some person behind me literally choking laughing. And this is like
Yeah.
before like this is the fight to get the butt plug in, and then you remember the
Yeah.
other guy freaking
Oh
like
yeah, jumping.
sumo
Yeah.
jumps in slow motion, and when he
Yeah, that
landed
shot
on that
is
thing, dude, this
hilarious.
person was screaming, like just screaming laughing. And then when the other this other guy comes out of nowhere with like the long trophy that is just flopping around, and it doesn't even look
Yeah.
like it's really in his butt. Like you can tell they're just like taped to their pants.
Yeah.
But
I was impressed. Honestly, I was impressed how they stayed whatever they attached, like the whole fight. I was like,
yeah.
I felt like a pervert. My eyes were on that. It was on that. I was like, how do they have something though that looks like that, but it's just attached there, and they're doing these insane martial
Yeah.
arts? Yeah.
And
Fun.
that's the kind of stuff that adds to the humor. It's like we need it to move more because it'll make it more ridiculous. Like we want this
Yeah,
to be the focus.
yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Just everything they had to. Just I love the paper cuts thing. That's just funny.
Oh yeah.
He had to get paper cuts in between every finger, and I don't know what else. Oh, when he eats the very first one, where you're just like, what is going on? Like I thought it was just going to be something really. I underestimated the absurdity because when he takes out his chapstick or whatever and eats
Yeah.
it, I was like, okay, this is going to be the thing. Like this is just the absurd thing. They have to like, it's like a secret thing that he carries with him that he has to eat this chew on this every time he wants to first jump. But no, it's even more ridiculous than that. I was making too much sense of it compared to what the movie was doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah,
God.
all of that. And then just the they were able to like explain a lot about this multiverse in a quick amount of time
Yeah.
where it wasn't too much backstory all at once. Like
Yeah.
that I understood it, like okay, there's an alphaverse and
Mm-hmm.
that's where they discovered it, and so from there is where they're all jumping to other universes, and then she had a student. Okay, this is something I didn't understand. Like in the alphaverse, the main character is the scientist that discovered the jumping and had a student that she said had a lot of promise, but she went too far and broke her brain. But that's
Which
also her
was
daughter.
yeah.
But then, so is that daughter? Then that doesn't that kind of? I mean, that is a different person than the daughter that is mad at her mom in the certain
Yeah.
universe. So
Yeah.
I like those aren't really connected. Like her grievance isn't really connected to why she became nihilistic, but they act like that's the reason that she became nihilistic was
Mm-hmm.
just for that because of that. I don't know. Like the mom
Yeah.
caused it.
And that's what's okay. So now we're getting into plot holes because it's like the version. I think her name is Joy in the real version.
Yeah.
It's weird because when we keep snapping back into her verse, no one in her verse knows about the verse jumping. Like the husband is unaware, and even the daughter is unaware. So like they're not mentally connected to the other verses to have the same experiences, right?
True. Yeah,
So
you're
like
right.
why?
Why does the
'Cause,
daughter?
we cut to the verse in their real verse where after the party or whatever, she's about to drive off, and then she's like, "I started all the," she's talking as if she was the same version of herself that has experienced everything. Because that's something I was
Yeah,
confused by. Like when we first
true.
get the reveal that it was the daughter, and then we see the daughter unknown, and she tapes her up, and then it's like, I have to protect her. But then it's like, I don't understand where the connect. Like, if other version of a verse jumps into you, do you immediately have those react experiences, or are you just like a vessel? And they portrayed it as if you're just a vessel, and then when they
Yeah.
leave, you're back to your normal state. But there's so many
Yes.
moments that we see her communicate with her daughter where she's in her normal state, but they never explicitly show that they're connected. So same thing with the husband. Like, how is he talking about kindness if the Alphaverse person died, who has had all the knowledge and experiences of life?
Well, because him makes sense because his real version is just like a nice guy that like
Oh, so he
whatever.
would have. Yeah, he would say that.
That kind of makes sense, that part, but like the daughter doesn't make sense, like
Yeah.
you're saying. And then the mom, like I don't understand, like the character that we're following, the soul, I guess you would say, that we're following the entire time is the one from the regular universe that we see from the beginning of the movie. And then she's like pulling in skills from other universes, but she's not becoming the people from the other universe. I don't know. That was a little confusing. Like you could pull in skills from other universes by doing absurd things, but that didn't make you the person. That didn't make you the version of yourself from the other universe. You got to stay yourself, but you were just pulling in skills from that other brain. But
Yeah.
then at other times, like the husband, his self from the Alphaverse is possessing the bodies in other universes. So
Mhm.
I don't know. It's like, I guess you could do both. It's kind of like a one-way thing. You can either pull stuff from other universes, or you can possess bodies in other universes. I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, I guess it starts to fall apart the more you, but it's a multiverse. So, I mean, it is really hard. It's kind of like, it's like time traveling. Like you can't really, there's no way you can make a time travel movie without any plot holes.
Yeah.
Maybe Primer did it, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, because we
But yeah.
see so many scenes of her going into the other verses, like the acting verse, the Rakikui verse. And I guess is it implied that she's controlling those people and then she's just possessing them to do whatever to fix the reality with kindness? Or is she actually those people? Like, does she, like, is she like a hive mind? I guess is like, I guess that's what the movie portrays, is that she's like a hive mind, because she even says, like, I am experiencing everything everywhere all at once.
Oh wait, yeah, because she broke it, like the daughter. It's like once
Oh,
you
okay.
break it, then you can be the hive mind, I guess.
Okay.
Once you get to that point, yeah,
But
maybe
then,
that's it.
yeah, but then the bigger plot hole then becomes the daughter. Even though she broke it, why doesn't this reality know the breakage when she's been
Yeah,
inhabited? Yeah.
yeah, that was, yeah, kind of weird, but
I will say, I really like the rock scene.
yeah, me too. Yeah,
I thought
just the
that was really
quiet.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, totally different style. All of a sudden, super quiet and still, but it makes sense because it's like the emotional scenes. I don't know. It fit with the emotion of it.
Yeah.
Just kind of the giving up. I'm just gonna be a rock. Yeah.
Just gonna be a rock. Oh, and then we have to talk about the hot dog fingers. What did you think about
Yeah.
that
Um.
whole narrative?
My God. Just ridiculous. Yeah, I love it. It was good. It was funny, but absolutely ridiculous. I love the 2001: A Space
That's
Odyssey
what I was. That's what I was gonna ask.
homage. Yeah, that was fun, and the just that she would, like, she's in a relationship with the tax lady, Jamie Lee Curtis in the other reality, they're like lovers. That was
Mhm.
funny. And yeah, the cat just, even tying it in with the Bollywood movie that she's watching on TV,
Yeah.
in the laundromat. That's cool. Like, they tied everything in. I did
Yeah.
like, oh, before I forget, like, I did like the attention to, like, from the very beginning of this movie, the very first scene, I was like, my expectations like went up, because there's so much attention to detail just in like the first 5 minutes in the movie. Like, just the fact that, like, the first shot of the movie is like that mirror, which I guess is a nice little whatever that, mirrors
Yeah.
the parallel universes or whatever. But then, like, the way it transitions to a different time of day, and then the door slams and it moves the mirror down a little bit, it moves it down perfectly so that now you can see, the character's face in the mirror, and then it zooms into the mirror, and then it goes into that scene.
Yeah.
And then in the background of that scene where she's sitting at the table uh, doing her taxes, there's a mirror behind her, and it just happens to be lined up right, like, perfectly, so that the husband's face is in that mirror behind her.
Oh
Like, I
yeah.
was just like, they didn't have to do any of that. Like, it was
Yeah.
just so many, just in the first couple minutes, so many unnecessary extra effort put in there, little
Yeah.
details, that I was like, man, that's great that
Yeah.
they're doing all, like, you got to commend them for their attention to detail.
Yeah, the
Um,
staging and the like composition of all the framing was awesome. And then it was the other thing that I forgot to mention in the review portion. I don't know if you noticed this, but like every time they went into a different universe, the aspect ratio changed. So
yeah,
like as soon
yeah,
as he starts fighting with his like fanny pack, it actually goes into like an ultra widescreen, like kind of like The Matrix or something. And then like
hmm,
the actual like color grading changes slightly, and it's more like
yeah,
blue, green, and then like when we're in hot dog finger land, it's more of like a typical romantic comedy. Like it's very bright
yes,
and like red and orange.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
the everyone says it's like Wong Kar Wai. I assume you've seen some of his films.
in
The
the
like
mood for love.
yeah, like the
Uh,
where she's
yeah,
an
that's the
actual actress or whatever. What did you think
yeah,
about that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the references to that movie were cool because that's I hadn't read that before, but even just watching it, I was like, oh, this is very in the mood for love. I mean,
And
they
I
even just made them dress like that time. I think that movie takes place in like the 50s or something, or the
wow.
60s, I guess. But they could make them dress that way because they're like dressed up for a movie premiere or whatever, so it makes sense. But
Yeah.
and then they do the shots and everything were like an homage to that, like the blurry uh kind of people moving in the background when she's walking and the
Yeah.
lighting and everything. Uh
And
yeah, so that
the,
was
the
cool.
the husband looks so cool. I was like, dude, this is like a like he looks like really good. Like he looks like a leading man. Like in specifically in that
Yeah.
sequence, like with his
Yeah.
glasses and
Oh yeah.
like his
Very
facial
stylish.
features. I was like, this kind of looks like like a I mean, not to talk smack about Jackie Chan, but like if Jackie Chan was like a serious actor, like for some reason because his face was like really rounded, and the way like just knowing that he could perform humor like in the previous sequences, like oh this guy's really funny, and then here he's also like very emotive and powerful and strong and kind. Maybe it was just his outfit and how he was holding himself like physically. I was like, man, dude, I would
Yeah.
watch this guy in like a drama like right now.
Isn't it weird that this is like the first movie that he's been in like 20 years? It's kind of
Yeah.
insane.
And I was
Yeah.
like listening to an interview with him, and he was saying like he had to get a acting coach because he was like so
Oh wow.
nervous, and he was like, "I'm gonna be in a movie with Michelle Yeoh and Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, what the fuck?" And supposedly the acting coaches, and this was like 30 days before filming, is all the time he had to like train up. And the acting coach was like, "You just need to focus on acting like an animal. Like that's like supposedly like the basics of performing is like imagine you're an animal for different characters." So like supposedly for the Wong Kar-wai stuff, he was supposed to act like a fox, and then for the real world version, he's supposed to act like a squirrel, and then
That
I think I
makes
forgot
sense.
for the Alphaverse, it was some other like masculine like animal, but I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool. And then he
That
would
is
say
cool.
like for like 4 hours a day for like 30 days straight, he would just act like a squirrel, like literally pretend he was a squirrel, and then learn his lines and stuff. And I was like, oh my god. But it
Yeah, that's
worked.
cool.
It worked really well. Like I thought he was holding his own the whole movie.
I would have never, yeah, I would have never thought that he hadn't been in a movie in 20 years or that he wasn't an actor. I just kind of assumed that he was an actor, like an established actor,
Yeah,
until I saw it after the movie, and I was like, man, that's crazy. Yeah.
yeah. Oh man. And then what another like interesting tidbit that I learned is like supposedly one of the earliest drafts of this film, they wanted Jackie Chan to be the main character. Like and
Oh
it
yeah.
was gender flipped, and then
Uh
they
huh.
changed it in the rewrites or whatever. But then I was thinking I was like, "Oh man, that would have been very interesting." But I think Jackie Chan is already like I don't know, I just feel like he's older and I can't even remember the last thing I saw him in. So I think they made the right choice with Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah.
But I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting because I am such a huge Jackie Chan fan. I think I would have fainted. But it
But
would have
yeah.
changed the whole movie because the way he does stunts and choreography, I don't think would have fit this movie, and I don't think the
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous, you know, childish humor would have fit. Where Jackie Chan is just straight up like slapstick physical humor, like Buster Keaton and stuff. So I don't think that would have
Yeah.
fit with this at all.
It would have taken me out of the movie, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Definitely.
man.
Even
Ah,
Jamie Lee Curtis kind of took me out of the movie a little bit, just because every
really?
other actor, yeah, just because she's so like I just know her, so it's kind of
Yeah.
like I don't know, like I was like, okay, she's playing like it's just because I'm familiar with her, so I'm like, okay, she's playing like a silly person, and so I couldn't really take her character serious, but like every other character I could because I'm not familiar with them as
Yeah.
actors, but yeah,
I
so it kind of
actually
worked more.
really liked her IRS outfit. Like I thought,
Oh, it's funny, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it's
like
hilarious.
just the little like flabs of fat that she would have like rolling in her stomach, and the way she would like eat, and like she had an arm brace, and then on top of the
Yeah,
arm
yeah.
brace a watch, and then like the little plastic thumb. I'm like, she must have like literally hung out with an IRS person because like she is like the definition of all of them. in one being.
Uh-huh.
She's like
Just the
the master.
condescension.
Yeah.
Yeah. The authority, she's got some a complex.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh, one thing I want to, because I was confused on watching the movie. So early on in the film, I think it was like when she was doing her taxes, we see the like divorce paper, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that he served her the papers before the film started, right? Like it was previous to that.
Wait. No, like he he was carrying the papers for some
Mm-hmm.
reason cuz he wanted to give it to her, but then uh when the alpha version of him came into his body, he just quickly wrote the instructions on the back of the divorce papers and handed it to her, and then that's how she had it, right? And then yeah,
See that's
and
what I was
then what were you saying?
Oh, that's what I was confused by. Like, cause there's the scene where they're like, you wrote it on, like after she punches the IRS lady, he's like, you saw this, and we can talk about it or whatever. And
Yeah,
then she's like, I know, I followed the steps, and you told me I would. Like they're having an argument about two different things because she
yeah,
doesn't know that it's a different version. So that made me think like, oh, so she didn't know he was getting divorced with her, but I could have
no,
swore like before they went to the IRS building, we saw a scene of the divorce papers like on a table or something. Or I guess maybe he was holding them and she didn't see him. I don't know.
yeah. I think that's what it was. Yeah, like he
Oh,
had
okay.
them. He was like carrying them around with him, and he was gonna like talk. He kept wanting her to talk to him about it,
Oh,
but she
okay.
never. She was super busy and distracted. But then it showed there was like a shot that showed us that he was holding divorce papers. Yeah,
Okay. So for
it
some
was like a
reason,
close up of it.
okay.
Yeah.
So that threw me off. So that argument was her first time realizing that he was going to divorce her.
Well, that wasn't there. That was like the humorous like it was clever because it was like she only saw the back of the papers with the instructions on them,
Yeah.
and she thought she was talking about that, but she was holding it up to him and he was seeing the front of it, which was
Oh,
the
yeah.
divorce papers. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was funny because they were both arguing about different things. But then yeah, then later right after that she sees it. But
So
yeah.
So there was another, I guess the other confusing part to this is for me. There was another like version or multiverse that they were in where they were like in a like car. It wasn't a car. It was like a
Oh yeah.
minivan or something, and they were directly
Mhm.
talk. He was talking about what's their faces got a divorce and blah blah blah.
Uh-huh.
So was that like a different timeline or was that our
Yeah.
same?
No, that was definitely a different. That was like a really close parallel
Okay,
universe, I think.
okay,
Yeah.
and
Yep. Like
then
a really, she had to go. I forgot why, but I think it was that she had to go to one that was really similar or something. I
yeah.
don't know. That was really close.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Interesting.
it's like almost their universe, but which I love that. Like the whole idea that there was some that are close because they're more similar, and then that you
Yeah.
could go further away. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I love
But
how all that was like visualized on the little I think it was
hmm
like a little tablet. It was just like little balls and I was like, "Oh, that is like genius graphic design." Like it's very simple and it's very basic and it's just connecting dots. It almost felt like a little mini
yeah.
game in a video game or something.
Yeah, every time they switched, it would really quickly show us like a list of the skills that they were like downloading, like it's the Matrix,
Yeah.
that was funny. Like they have a computer program that quickly shows you like, okay, they're getting these skills, like whatever. I liked the blind one, where she's the blind singer, and it's like, all right, she
Oh,
has
yeah.
limited vision but extra senses and heightened spatial awareness and all, or whatever, all this stuff, and it was funny, the list that they showed real fast. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that was super creative. Just like the said, like, okay, this is if she was blind, she would have these extra skills, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden she could do this, and yeah, and then the
So,
pizza, whatever, tossing the sign up, how that
oh
came.
yeah. So all the multiverse jumping was guessing, right? Like you do something weird, and then wherever you land, you might end up. Or was there, or do they explain that you can
Uh,
consciously think of like,
I
oh,
think
this?
they did.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it was like you focus your intention on what you want or what you need in that moment. And
Oh, okay.
after you've done the absurd thing, it's like your brain will focus on the closest. Or was it the device they were wearing, I guess, that your
Oh,
things
yeah.
would
Yeah.
help find the closest one that matches what you want. Yeah. It's very
Interesting.
like meta, like don't think about it too much, but
Yeah.
or else it doesn't make any sense. But uh,
One thing we need to talk about. What did you think about like the entrance of the daughter when she's like revealed to be the villain and she like comes in and like kills people with
oh, that
two
was great.
like
Yeah.
dual wielding dildos?
Oh yeah. That was like, yeah, was that the first? I wonder if that was the first like really ridiculous thing that happened.
Oh
You'll have
yeah.
to you'll have to see when you watch it again, but
Yeah.
I think
I think
that was the first time where people in the theater were like laughing uncomfortably,
hmm
like okay, this is like the kind of humor that this movie is.
yeah.
You know.
I think that was pre butt plug fight.
Yes, it was. Yeah. And yeah, I liked that whole like just I like the having a character that just doesn't care so she can literally just make anything happen that she imagines. So she was like showing off, showing that off to the mom, like I can just, and it's just no effort for her. So it's like both really scary, a really scary villain, but
Yeah.
also it made sense that she just didn't care at that point.
Oh my god.
But they didn't know why. They didn't know why she didn't care at that point. But then later it explained it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, and I don't think you ever said like what did you think about the Rakakui thing? Because like the first time they mentioned it, I thought it was just like a joke, like she was misremembering or something. But then when we
Yeah.
wrap back around, I was like, oh,
Well, she was. Yeah. I guess she was misremembering in that moment, but then they just made it a joke. Like,
they,
I guess with infinite universes, like they just made it like, okay, yeah, that is a universe where
wow,
that is real. But I don't know. I didn't like for some reason I don't like when movies reference other movies directly. Like I was just like,
yeah,
I don't know. It just felt like a weird Marvel-ish joke or something. I don't know. The joke didn't fit with all the
okay.
other humor that was in the movie, so I was kind of like,
So
it's too specific. It's too specific. I don't know. So I was
okay,
like, why? And it made me, like you said, like it made you think, like why are we seeing this universe like
yeah,
versus any other? Well, what does this have to do with the main characters and everything? So
yeah.
I don't know. I could have done without that universe and just replace it with something absurd but somehow related to the family. I don't know.
I did like the look of the raccoon, like the actual
Oh yeah,
physical prop, and it was like screaming in the cage. Like I think that was just a
yeah.
funny image of it of like it was
That
so
is just
obviously
it's just
fake.
like a puppet. Yeah, it's like the fox in Antichrist, the Lars von Trier
Oh,
movie. That's just like
oh,
obviously a puppet, but it makes it kind of funny. Or in that movie, it makes it creepier.
yeah,
It's just like a weird fox puppet. Yeah,
yeah. Or
yeah,
but yeah, I think that is definitely one of the weakest ones. And yeah, it's just like so obvious because the Ratatouille thing, and but oh my god. So, was there any other major moments you want to talk about that we haven't covered? I think I think,
uh, no, I guess like the downsides that or things that we haven't mentioned are like, and these are just kind of little nitpicks or whatever, but
hmm
the title, the three chapters that they had, that really unintentionally drew me out of the movie because,
oh,
and I looked at my phone because I was like, how long? Because I was waiting for chapter two to happen for the
hmm
longest time, and I was like, okay, wait, I was like, how long? It's been like an hour, and this is still chapter one. Like, how long is this movie? And I finally, when chapter two showed, I looked at my phone and it had already been an hour and a half. I was like, like what in the world? Like this movie, is this going to be like a 3 hour movie? But it was kind of
Eh,
like chapter one was like an hour and a half. Chapter
yeah.
two was like 30 minutes and chapter three was like 15 minutes. It's like, I don't know. It was something like that. But,
And man, dude,
it was unnecessary.
the
Like, I don't know.
chapter, like the chap. When did the chapter thing start? because I felt like 2 years ago, no movies had chapters, and now
Oh,
I think it started when we started Cineverb, honestly, because that's the first time I noticed it. It was like Suicide
I
Squad,
don't
and
know.
then it was like every other movie was just like had
Hmm.
titles, and a lot of them I enjoyed, and it made sense. But in this one, I was like kind of confused, especially coming off of a movie that I really loved. I can't remember if you enjoyed the movie or not, but The Worst Person in the World, like those
Oh yeah.
chapter breaks, I really, 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 really loved. And in this
Hmm.
one, it just felt like, oh, we'll just use the title of the movie because like everything, like it wasn't really everything, and then everywhere, like they weren't really everywhere, and then all
Yeah,
at
it
once,
didn't
like there wasn't an actual change in cadence or pace or narrative or
yeah.
substance.
Didn't have to be there at all. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah.
don't know. Like, I wonder who is where someone should. I'm sure there's a video essay out there on YouTube about the
there,
history of chapter titles in movies.
there was
All
a
I the early. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say there's probably like a every frame of painting that we just missed out on that everyone watched, and it's like yes, chapter titles.
Yeah, it has like 10 million views. Yeah, yeah. No, only ones that I don't know. The ones that pop into my head are like, I mean, Tarantino has been doing it since.
Yeah.
I think Reservoir Dogs even has it, like in the early '90s, and then Wes Anderson does it in almost all of his movies. I wonder if he's the one that's kind of kept it trend.
Oh.
You know, he's like kept it trendy because he has it in every single one of his movies. You know, with
Yeah.
chapter titles. So I don't know. They come to my mind,
Oh
but
my god.
they,
Yeah.
yeah, they're serve purposes, but yeah, this one not so much.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, the other thing that you kind of alluded to in your review was like near the end of the movie, it's like I think it was because they kept going back and forth between really fast action scenes and then slow scenes, and it just kind of kept going back and forth, like fast action, quick, slow talking scene, you know, drama scene, and then fast action, and then slow drama scene, and it kept doing that, but like near the end especially, to where I was just like, ugh, I'm like tired. It kept pulling me out of it because it like gets you all excited, you know,
Yeah.
because you're, I don't know, a regular movie, it kind of has rising action, you know, and
Yeah.
it makes the pace go faster and faster. And then you get to the climax, and I don't know, it's like there's a certain pace that I'm used to, but then this one kind of broke that, which could have worked, but it just kind of drew me out of it, I guess. Because every slow scene, I was like, oh man, I was like, my brain was sort of in like fast, okay, we're getting to the climax of the movie. And then all of a sudden we're in a slow scene. And then we
Yeah.
have another action scene, fight scene, and then we're in a slow scene. So I don't know if that bothered you, but
Yeah. Yeah. There was the whole last part. I think is where it kind of collapsed. And I think it's just because I talked about earlier, like the whole emotional crux. I don't think was set up properly, and then like what you're saying is that intercutting and it honestly felt like intercutting kind of for fun, like because you could tell they were like intercutting, between like sad scene and then they would intercut to the rocks and then a rock falling off in slow motion and then they're
yeah.
like off the cliff and then sad music and then you're cut back to another universe with like hot dog fingers, squirting mustard in someone's mouth or crying or like the feet piano, like I think it's fun
Yeah.
and it's funny, like, and it would work in a music video. But at the end of a
Oh,
2 hour
yeah.
film, like it felt like this
Yeah.
is like if it almost felt like it was contradicting itself, which is maybe what they wanted, but I don't think it was the most optimal way to do it. And I think it would have worked if the emotional stuff was more tied. Like if everything they were intercutting to, even though it's absurd and different tones, if they were all about the same people, then I think it would make it feel smoother, like subconsciously. And I think that's what
Hmm.
that's what bothered me about it, because it just felt like so many climaxes, and then like all the way to the end, she's climbing up the stairs, like fixing everyone with kindness, and I was like, oh, but the raccoon person, like, how does that really fix anything? Like, she just recaptures the raccoon again, and they hang out. Like it's. I started to think like, why do I care about certain resolutions? And then like even like the director has a cameo where he's like doing BSDM or whatever it's called. I forgot.
Oh,
With
yeah, yeah.
with the gag ball, and I was like, that could have been
Hmm.
cut out. And like also the other scene with him could have been cut out. Like just all the like little villains, people. I think all that stuff could have been cut, and you would have saved like 15 minutes, and then you would have had a cleaner climax. Because even when we finally get to the daughter, and then that ends with the conversation at the car, which I guess is something we need to talk. We should talk about, because like even that final conversation, I was like kind of confused. Like, wait, what? Because she was like, you can just leave, and then they're like, okay,
Yeah.
and then she comes
She kind of
back,
like,
and then
yeah.
I don't even remember what she said. Like she was just like, I literally can't remember. But then like I guess
She was like, okay, like you could leave, but like I still want, even though there's all the, it's weird. Yeah. Cause she said a bunch of bad things about the daughter. She lists a bunch of things. And then she's like, but even regardless of all that, I still want to be here right now with you. It's like supposed to be meaningful, but it was kind of weird. It was like, she just reminded the daughter of like all the things that she didn't like about her. And then she said, but I still want to be here with you. And that's where my cynical brain was like, this doesn't really make sense. I don't know. Like if this, that the multiverse exists, all this, it's like could you still be this sentimental? Like
I don't know. Yeah, I think it would break you. Like, and I think the whole like everything bagel thing, like I guess like the whole point of the film is to be more lighthearted. But yeah, like I don't think if you were to experience all these different multiverses, you would be, fighting with dildos. I don't know. Maybe someone would, but I don't know. I think I would just freeze in just absolute destruction. I mean,
it would be like a Watchmen reference. It would be like a Dr. Manhattan kind of thing. Like you would just go to Mars and just like isolate yourself and be like, oh God, like with these kind of powers, like what else are you supposed to do? Like
because that's the other thing they said was like once you break the system and you become like the hive mind, I think they both say like we're experiencing all the universes at the same time, and I don't think they really the filmmakers did a good job portraying that in the film. Like they say it, but I never felt like, oh, she is literally living every life simultaneously side by side. And I think that would have been the cool intercutting Inception style climax is every universe. Instead of us seeing, Rakakui and whatever, we see her fixing it with her daughter every single time in like in varied ways. And it's the same conversation, but in different contexts, environments, situations. Oh man, that would have been fucking perfect.
I like that. Yeah, yeah.
And that, wow, that would be so fun to write. Like you have to write the final speech of a movie in 20 different movies.
Different ways, yes. Oh, yeah. Wow. Oh my God. This is that moment in every podcast episode where you come up with like a really, really good alternate idea. And it just hits me like, yes. Yeah.
Shit, or, dude. We gotta write a multiverse movie.
Yeah, I like your idea of like this could be one of those little movies that doesn't get a lot of credit, but like starts a bigger genre. Just for some reason, just multiverse movies just start happening because people, I don't know, it's just like that idea like fits our time, and it just becomes like this whole like a big subgenre of sci-fi where it's just a bunch of like movies that take different approaches on the multiverse.
Yeah,
that could be cool. I could see that.
One thing I like, the central theme that I think that makes this genre kind of powerful, because, like every genre is like kind of a metaphor for an emotion or feeling or fear in like our real world or whatever, like sci-fi is like a distortion of whatever. But with this, the multiverse idea, I think the core emotional crux of it is, and I think it fits our time, is we all feel like the world is about to collapse,
Oh my God. Yeah.
Institutions are collapsing, emotionally, people, society. So like this is the perfect metaphor, sci-fi metaphor to think, well, maybe in a different reality we did things better. And I think that like they kind of hint at it in this story, but it's too comedic and too off the wall to really show anything of substance regarding that. And I think if someone were to like you're saying, a serious Kaufman thing, like, but even if you were to tackle this, like, it's such a genius genre, or this like concept, because you could do an emotional thing, you could do a relationship thing, you could do a love thing, you could do interpersonal thing, you could do societal things, environmental, world, and I
Yeah.
think a really dark, like, human exploration, I think, would be fascinating. Like, into the psyche of humanity in a social or political or like a grand scale, you know? Like, it's kind of mind breaking to think about. And I think it would have a lot of potential.
Well, you reminded me that about the line that the dad has near the beginning, that like he does have that line. I think it's so sad because like that set me up to think that this was going to be a deeper movie, where he starts, where he's like, you felt it like every day, it's like whatever, your clothes don't fit as well as they did the day before. Like things are breaking down, the world is becoming more chaotic, like systems aren't working, like we all just, we want to find a way to get it back to the way it was. Like I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
That's such a good, like, relevant theme that hasn't been explored in movies enough, that's probably just coming up in the last, like 5 or 10 years, especially with the COVID thing, that is becoming
Yeah.
more and more in front of people's minds, that people feel that way. And so like, man, it would be great to see that like explored more.
Oh
But in
my
this,
God.
that's another weird plot hole, that like he says that as if it's the daughter's fault, like because the daughter has broken the multiverse and she's sucking certain universes into the donut,
Yeah.
sorry, bagel. That's the reason that things are feeling that way for everyone. But then they never followed through with that, so it
Yeah.
really doesn't make sense.
In
I don't
in
know.
all honesty, I think it should have just been wife and husband. Because I like anti-romance stuff. What if the villain was her? Was the original alpha version of her who realized,
Yeah,
who came up with this invention to multiverse jump, and then she lost
yeah.
control, and then you
Ooh,
realize it's me. Like, I am trying to stop
yeah,
me, and then that would be the parallel of, you have the despair, nihilistic version of herself, and then you have this other version which is kind, and then it would be a battle between yourself. And oh my God, what's so interesting is this is like the inverse of the Matrix idea. Like, the Matrix was so like groundbreaking breaking because everyone was like, oh my God, like we live in a simulation, and that's why there's like
yeah.
all these weird errors, and that's why I work a dead end job. Like, it was
Uh huh.
blaming society, where the multiverse thing is a very internal blame of like
Mm,
our world, like it's our world's fault, it's our decisions, and I
yeah.
just happened to be in the wrong one. And so it's more of
Mm-hmm.
like, instead of trying to break the system to escape, like in the Matrix, you're trying to just leave you're trying to fantasize of a different world. Like, I forgot the word for it, but there's like that thing where people are like, I wish I grew up in the 80s cuz that was the
Yeah.
best time. It's like that kind of weird psychological trip of, things would be better if I could just live in a different existence. And I think that is
Mm-hmm.
like something we're all feeling. And
Yeah.
maybe it's because of like the internet and social media and like the interconnectedness, which is actually like disconnecting us. It's like,
Yeah.
are we
It's a lot
even
of things.
living any version of our own reality? This is like the most genius concept, and I felt like we got the dildo fighting butt plug version, and it's like,
Which is fine.
yeah, which is
Yeah,
cool.
it's like it could be the beginning, yeah,
Yeah,
of a genre. Yeah, definitely.
but
We could keep our eye out for that.
oh my God.
Uh,
But yeah, like, is there another movie? Because I mean, you've seen a lot more movies than me. Like, is there a multiverse movie besides this? Like, I
I don't know. I can't. Off the top of my head, besides Marvel stuff,
yeah, but like,
like
it's so strange. Like, this should be like, there should be, like a 2001 Space Odyssey kind of thing of this, right? Like, like,
yeah,
if
you'd
Stanley
think.
Kubrick was still alive, I think he would have came around to this kind of concept.
Yeah, it's weird because yeah, if I just like Google multiverse movies, I don't see anything
Is the multiverse
that
like
I
a
remember
a
that's
newer concept
interesting.
in humanity?
Maybe that's why it is. Yeah, maybe because well,
more?
No, I mean, speaking of there's Star Trek episodes about
Oh,
multiverses
okay, yeah,
back
yeah.
in the. It's been around a while, I guess, but I don't know why. Well, it's kind of like the superhero thing. I think why like superhero movies becoming so popular is this for the same reason that multiverse movies would be interesting. Is just because people are kind of nihilistic and everyone's like feeling sort of that like a loss of like meaning and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And superhero movies provide, the easy, like the heroes, that
Yeah.
everyone wishes existed, and like clear
Right
heroes and
and wrong.
villains.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Which
yeah,
which
so
this
this is just
does.
like a
Like it does
true.
have it's a very black and white, which I think for me
Yeah.
was a negative. Yeah.
Like nihilism versus kindness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I was thinking, I was going to say this too, is like an alternate version would be, instead of focusing on like kindness or whatever, or love as the thing that's against nihilism, like what about just like preventing suffering? I don't know, like
Oh.
it's just a pleasure versus suffering thing. Like, isn't that the reason why we can't like just not care about anything, is because there's such thing as suffering? And like, even if there is a multiverse, like suffering still exists, like in the moment, in your current universe. Like if you're just inflicting pain on someone, that still exists. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how many universes there are, that's still just as powerful. So like, let's not cause suffering. Like let's prevent suffering. So
Yeah.
I don't know, I was just like, what if they completely focused on that?
Yeah.
But I guess that's harder to, that's not as like catchy as just saying, just like be
Kindness.
kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, kindness, whatever.
Yeah, and that
Because
would
the
be
villain didn't. Well, I guess she killed people.
yeah, and that's
Didn't
the other
she?
thing. She killed like multiple versions of her mom. Like even the Alphaverse
Oh
version of the
yeah,
mom was
yeah,
dead, and she was going
yeah.
through and annihilating them all. But
Mm-hmm.
like we never really see that. Like that's the one thing I did
Because they
like.
didn't want to make her. Yeah, it's like they didn't want to make her too much of a evil villain,
And
because she's
that's
redeemed at the end. But
and that's where I think it would have been way smarter to have a Michelle Yeoh variant that is just evil and toxic, and that is, the
it's her.
deepest,
Yeah.
yeah, the deepest despairing version of her, and she's just going around, not
Yes.
even killing, not just killing herself, but also killing her husbands and and her daughters.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be so cool, and like I think that is like the power of genre, like I was talking about earlier. It's like it's a fantasy of fears and desires and whatever sick thoughts or whatever. So like, it's like a mother going on a rampage and it's like, I never want a daughter. That ruined my life. I don't want this
Mm-hmm.
husband because he
Yeah,
limited
yeah.
me in this. I don't want this job. I don't want to do my taxes. It could be like it's sick, current society fulfillment. Like, what if you could just go into every universe and destroy all the things you hate in your current
Oh man.
universe? It's like
Yeah.
a selfish. Like I think that would have to be the core. It would have to be super character driven, and it's just selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Like at that point, if you knew an infinite amount of universes existed, everything would be too big of a task to fix. Like even if, like you're saying, you fix world suffering in one universe, are you going to do that for an infinite amount of universe? Like why not pleasure your?
Yeah.
I think it would be completely pleasure focused. And if you're like an angry person who hates their life, I think you would get pleasure from going into every multiverse and making it your dream version, and then also engaging in fantasies. And I mean, it would, dude, it would fit, like with like violent video games or like Grand Theft Auto. There's like
Oh
fantasy
yeah.
aspects that we currently do in our real world. It's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like violence, but I like watching violence on the news. Like so it'd be
Yeah.
that lived experience because there's no rules as a super hive mind multiverse being. Oh, that would be so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow,
It's
wow,
got
wow, wow.
potential. It's got a lot of potential.
So I guess one final thing we need to touch on, and now I'm kind of like, is this? Do you think this is canon?
Not at the moment, but if it starts something, then yeah. Like
Yeah.
if it's like the first example of like a new subgenre, then maybe in the future we could call it canon. Yeah,
Yeah.
depends.
I
Yeah.
would agree. Yeah, I think it needs to fester a little bit and see. Especially for me, like I'm curious what the rewatch does, but yeah.
It might become a cult classic. I mean, over time, yeah. I mean, you said like I don't know the reception. You probably read more of the reception or whatever, but like for instance, just looking on when did it? You saw it a week ago, so it was in theaters a week ago, and like on IMDb, it only has like 14,000 ratings, for instance, and that's like I think that's really small for IMDb.
Yeah.
And so it's not even like it's not in the top movies like which you would expect. You know, if it was a huge thing, it'd be like the IMDb top, whatever, top 100, top 50 or whatever.
So it must just be like the film Twitter bubble, because on Letterboxd it has almost like 80,000 watches, and it's at a 4.6, which is the highest rating. It's at.
I think it's definitely like within the film nerd A24 world. You know,
I guess
makes sense.
Letterboxd is the A24 film site.
So it could become a cult classic over time, in like the actual cult classic way, where like it has at the beginning the small group of people that have seen it, and then over the years it kind of grows. And maybe if it secretly starts as a subgenre like we're talking about, then more people will like go back to it and reference it, look at it and be like, oh yeah, look at that. The year, and it's like historically it makes sense why like it could be the start, like in the year after COVID, you know, was ending, and there was a freaking war in Europe, and you know, like all the climate change, all this stuff, like it makes sense. You know, it's like, oh, this new genre popped up.
Yeah. Oh man, and then it's so interesting because they wrote this in like 2016, and they were like, we were inspired by the Trump win, not by COVID or anything. And I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy.
There's a lot of things.
Yeah. So cool. I'm looking at the top 250 of Letterboxd, and I think Everything Everywhere is the only A24 film in the top 250.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't even got to one yet, and I'm at.
It has gone beyond the A24 fanboys. To reach a larger audience. Yeah. That is good.
But all right, man, I think that will conclude our episode of Cineverm for Everything Everywhere All at Once. So thank you all for listening. We would be grateful and humbled if you could leave us a review with your thoughts or comments on Apple Podcast or Good Pods or Spotify or wherever you listen to our podcast. And if you could share us with your friends or family, as that helps us in our journey to spread the love of cinema. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Cinema.